The truth is that we're all going to experience some gaps, but the fun is that we get to choose which ones. You see, we actually get to choose which ones, and what we need to understand is that we need to choose correctly and wisely, and then we can exercise God-given authority in deciding for ourselves which gaps we will allow in our children's education and which gaps we don't want there. And so authority is simply the right to command and act upon your family's destiny. And you have been given the responsibility to direct your family according to God's ways and his ideas for what you should be doing with your life. And so you have this authority, and so with that authority comes God's wisdom and direction, and bringing you to an understanding of things that you didn't previously understand, because he will open your eyes to see a lot of wonderful things that you perhaps have not seen in your family before. So this idea of gaps, the wrong gaps in your children's education are going to produce boredom. Okay, meeting the demands of the system is going to produce boredom in your children, creating gaps that are wrong for them. Okay, there will become voids in their development, gaps that actually deaden the soul toward life, toward real relationships and real responsibilities, you see. And so this void where they're not actually getting to develop skills and abilities and creativity, you see, children are actually prevented from that for the most part when you're trying to follow the standards of the educational system. However, a spirit-led and a delight-directed path where the focus is on relationship and character formation, this will ensure that your children will certainly never develop the condition of boredom within their soul. Not to mention, they will become filled with purpose and driven by purpose all the days of their lives. They'll learn how to use their time wisely, recognizing that God has a plan for their gifts and talents even throughout adolescence, when typically the educational system has so indoctrinated the children toward artificial learning processes that their souls have become deadened for lack of development. And in Mark 8:36 tells us, for what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? You know, if a child grows up without a love of learning, the result is going to be a dullness of soul, or more specifically stated, boredom. And this is so common in schools today. Children are lost, teenagers especially. They are so lost. They don't know themselves. They're bored with learning. They're burnt out. There is a reason, and they don't love learning. Now, I realize that that is not the case across the board, but I believe that it's so common that it deserves attention. It is so very common. What does it profit a child if he gains 12 years of academic information and knowledge and remains dull and passionless toward life and learning? What does it profit him? And worse yet is when he grows up without developing a sense of purpose and destiny and wanders for many years lost in his adult life, not knowing that God has a specially designed plan for him. And this purposelessness is like a soul death he is lost, just like Mark 8:36 tells us. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? And can't you see that in children today? A purposelessness and boredom and being burned out. It's like a disease that will rob a person of his life. So sometimes boredom is a result of too many of the wrong kinds of activities, and activities that are void of a creative flow, a creative outlet being forced upon a person, such as what can be seen in the traditional educational methods of content-based curriculum studies. The child is constrained to man's plan for his life, which stunts creative development, you see? And likewise, boredom develops when a child has been allowed too many visual forms of diversion, such as television, computer, video games, and whatever it is, visual scrolling on their phones. Too many visual forms of diversion, preventing them from actually doing real life and real learning. So the child develops a pattern of turning off his soul, turning off his mind to the whole process of learning, which is just real life, real relationships, real books, real learning, real jobs, real activities, real experiences. And they just simply go through the motions of doing what they are made to do. And so they're not actually having to make decisions and grow up on the inside. They're not actually relating with their real life. And so all we have to do to see that there is little that could be considered biblical about traditional education is to look at the fruit of what it is producing in your children, even as it's replicated in Christian schools with biblical content. It doesn't make a biblical education. You can't take curriculum and add a little bit of God and Christian ideas onto it and call it Christian, because it isn't. If it neglects the soul of a child in the process of learning, if it neglects personal responsibility and connecting to real life activity, then it's still just as unbiblical as a secular counterpart. Can you see this? Quality content is only one factor of several important elements to be considered biblical. And so the means or the method by which the education was procured will determine its success more so than any other factor. Dorothy Sayers said, "For the sole true end of education is simply this, to teach men to learn for themselves, and whatever effort failed to do this was an effort spent in vain." So poor methods of learning nearly wipe out any potential that the quality content possess for educating the student. So it's time to seriously consider just what we're doing to our children. Far too many children, even those in Christian homes, possess the condition of boredom in their souls and lack of purpose in daily life. And so fear of gaps will prevent you from knowing your children and helping them to form vision for their lives, because you'll be so busy just pushing them to jump through the hoops of an artificial idea for education. And Proverbs 29:18 tells us this: without vision, we go unrestrained in too many directions. So what better means to develop vision but to get to know the children in your charge?